My name is Antti Relander, and I'm from Eficode. I'm a DevOps consultant. I'm not a game developer or I'm not a Unity expert, but I know a thing or two about DevOps. So yeah, the agenda of this small presentation is to introduce you to DevOps and continuous integration and how to use it with Unity. I have a small demo here and I can show you how you can get most out of continuous integration. So yeah, what is DevOps? DevOps is about developers and operations. Traditionally in software development, those two entities are normally have been separated. Different people develop the software and different people operate the software. And it has been seen that it doesn't really make sense. So DevOps is about connecting those two using collaboration, communication, and automation. And it focuses on quality and performance. Those are the main goals and have been the main problems before, that the quality and performance are not good enough because of those developers and operations are not working efficiently together. And in practice, what it means, there are like various techniques and tools that can be used for achieving DevOps organizations. And those include things like test automation, continuous deployment, release automation, service virtualization, and whatnot. It's not all about the tools or techniques. The most important thing is the idea or the philosophy that the developers and operations work together. And the goals, what we're trying to achieve with DevOps is most importantly, it's a shorter time to market, so you can get your product faster out there, you can get your updates rapidly in production, you can make releases often, and then also automation is important. You should automate all your repetitive work to avoid errors and to reduce manual work. These things include stuff like building the software, testing the software, releasing the software, and so on. Basically everything that doesn't like require, how do you say, intelligence, or is not actual like productive work that you do. And also using DevOps, it brings you more transparency to your projects, and that improves the predictability. But like everybody who's working on the project or in the organization know how the projects are going on and have like a visibility to those projects and to those products that you are developing, and that improves predictability. And also it's important to have common goals that are shared in the organization between the developers and operations. DevOps doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be like, you have to be one person that does everything. You don't have to do that. You can still have like those different types of roles, but the important thing is that they work together and share the sort of the vision, so that the developers think how that software will be operated when it's done, how it will be updated, and also the operative people understand how the software is developed. And more specifically, how you can do DevOps in game organizations is, first of all, avoid silos. Again, like you can have different roles, but don't have like your operations team totally isolated from everybody else. Don't like have your QA department isolated from the game teams. And also involve people like business intelligence or analytics that get the feedback from the customers, also the customer support, everything that like measures the performance of your game, and try to also measure your performance, and that's the way to like make your product so that it is actually what your customers really want. Not normally, like when you are working or doing a game product, you try to like make the product final or somewhat final when you release it. In normal software development, is possible to like more incrementally develop the software and release like something that is not complete fully. But with games, it's probably more important for the gamers to have like a final product. Of course, there are exceptions, and now there are more these like early access games where you get the games when it's actually in the development phase. And yeah, again, like automate your repetitive tasks that are related to the game development. That, for instance, building is a good example. Testing is another example. Then there's stuff like rendering and with Unity things like how do you say, compressing the textures and stuff like that you can quite easily automate. And then also like distributing the game inside your company or for your beta testers. And then more about the building, a few words about continuous integrations that I'm going to show you the demo shortly. So continuous integration means that you make integration constantly. Integration for games basically means that you make builds. You build your game constantly. Normally, using continuous integration, it means that you build every single commit, and you should do it for, if you are doing multi-platform development. Let's say you're doing a mobile game that should run on iOS, Android, and Windows Phone when it's done. You should start from day zero to support those platforms. With Unity is easy because Unity already does that for you. You can like use continuous integration to always make builds for all the platforms that you are supporting, even though the game is not like in a final condition for all the platforms. If you are, let's say, starting with iOS and then making the Android version, but you should still like keep the game working so that you catch the issues early. Also, when there are like more than one developer working with the code, it's easy to make mistakes, but it's more important to catch those mistakes and issues early. Yeah, and then the other part of continuous integration is that when you're making those builds, often the building like gets easier and easier. It's not a big hassle to make a build. In many game development companies, building the game can be quite a hassle. It's not done very often, and when it's needed, there can be a lot of problems. Let's say you are making a game project for a customer and you need to have a demo build next week, and you haven't done a build for a while. It can get quite complicated, and you can get like many last minute issues if you don't do builds regularly. And then in addition to building, you can add automated tests. For instance, with Unity there is this Unity test tools that allow you to make unit test and integration test for your code. I think it's for C# that is used for Unity, and I think it uses NUnit or something like that, but it's quite easy to integrate those tests to your build to ensure that the game stays intact. And it also allows you to have like short feedback loop. You get your game easily to your device. You actually see how it feels on the real platforms. And then also, if you have a bigger organization, it's easy way to share the builds for testers and for the people who are interested in seeing the game, so you can get feedback from inside your organization, and then you can, of course, if you're doing a game project for a client, you can get the builds to the client also regularly, so that they can see how the game progresses and always see how it looks. And also, what I was saying, yeah. But yeah, that was the slides. I don't know if you have any questions about these things. It's good time to ask. I'm going to show you the demo next. And if not, we can move on and we can have the questions later. Yeah. Let's see. So, I don't know if you are already familiar with these.
How many here use Jenkins?
Oh.
Okay, almost like
That's
that.
a lot.
So this is probably not news for, but it might be news for someone. So the idea here is that I have a really basic Unity project that basically doesn't have anything in it. It's just a plain project, and it's in version control. I'm using Git.
Do we have it on another screen there, or?
Oh yeah, sure. True.
Happy Chinese New Year, by the way.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have kind of put some like mirroring.
Yeah, you should. I don't know how Mac works with that. Anyone remember speed key for Mac's mirroring? No. That works too.
Yeah, so I have this like really basic Unity project that basically doesn't have anything in it, but it still builds. I have the project in Git. Git is good version control system for software or code, but I don't know about Unity, because Unity, of course, in games you have things like assets that can be binary assets, that can be like music and images and whatever, textures and whatever. For those, Git is not probably the best version controlling system. So you should probably use something like a Unity Asset Service or just like some like file-based version controlling system like WebDAV for those assets. But for code, Git is quite nice, and like developers like to use it. And yeah, and then I have installed Jenkins on my own machine. Jenkins is basically a continuous integration server. Basically what it does, it gets the source code from your version controlling system. It runs some script, normally a build script for that code, and then it does something when the build is done. So in this example, I have my Unity project in Git, and then I have this job here. Basically what it does, it checks out the repo, and it like polls it every minute. So when there is a change, there is 1 minute delay and it gets built, and then it creates a basic iOS build out of the game, and then it sends it to HockeyApp. HockeyApp, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's this service where you can send your builds and you can get it to like any device basically, or the device that is allowed by Apple's provisioning profile policies. But anyway, anybody can go to the internet who has access and can get the build to their device. So basically you can have a setup like this on your company, and everybody has an account to HockeyApp, so everybody gets the latest builds directly to their device, and everything like this just runs on the background. So we can then maybe try it out. We can make a small change to the project. We can, let's say, increment the version number. Something as easy as that. You have anything else, then the project settings, and then we just create commit. Now after 1 minute it gets built. Meanwhile I can show you.
If you need to push it.
No, I actually don't,
yeah,
because I'm using a local. Oh, no, asks. So in addition to this, demo effects always. So in addition to this Jenkins job, that also, by the way, uses this Unity plugin to actually run the Unity. Unity basically requires you to create this small build script. Unity itself can create an iOS build, but you cannot, like, out of the box, you cannot create it from the command line, for example. So you need to create this type of small script. This is now for iOS only, but with a small effort this could work for Android and Windows Phone and basically all the platforms that Unity supports. It also adds this menu here that can do the same thing, but it's not really required for anything else except the automation. And yeah, now commit is there and it creates a build. It's gonna take a few minutes, but after that we can like get the build to this phone.
Any questions so far?
But yeah, it is pretty handy to use this sort of automation to make sure that your product stays good and that you see the possible problems that might happen early, and it's even better if you have this for all the platforms that you are supporting. Yeah, we can take questions while the build is ongoing. Yeah.
Do you still use Unity to develop your game further while the build process is running on Jenkins?
Yeah. The idea here is that this Jenkins would run on some central server somewhere, and then you have like separate like build machines for doing the actual hard work. Now this is just a demo, so it's running locally on my laptop, but the idea that the builds are done elsewhere, not on your local machine. That way it's normally faster and it doesn't like consume the resources that you need for the development. So you just develop the software normally and make a commit, and then you get an automated build, and you get some.
You need a separate Unity Pro license for that build computer.
Basically, yeah, and separate computer. And also, if you're developing for iOS, you need Mac and so on. But I think Unity is bringing up their own this sort of a continuous integration or build platform that does this on cloud. And of course, there are alternatives to this Jenkins, but Jenkins is just currently the best tool for this purpose. But there are alternatives. Jenkins is a free tool, but it requires some maintenance and that you have your own servers and stuff like that.
But basically,
Yeah.
So is that completely headless? Like,
Yeah.
so you could also, is it only for Windows Mac? Like, could you build it on Linux?
you can.
Yeah, you can of course build on Linux, but I don't know if Unity can. You can have Unity on Linux, and Unity doesn't do like cross compilations.
Yeah.
So if you build for iOS, you need a Mac, but for Android, I think it would be technically possible if Unity has a Linux version.
Actually, it is possible to build on Windows
Yeah.
or Linux, so
Okay.
I have done that kind of setup.
You
for
failed.
our
Yeah.
project,
It was because
Actually, you can
I'm
build
not online.
for Windows on Mac. I've tested that out once.
Yeah.
And basically, you can do like you have central server on Linux, and you could do nightly builds. Like everybody's computers are at the office, so you could have the Macs or actually be a slave and build it on during the night. Every night, you would have nightly builds of thing and deploy that to iOS, for example. Or it could be weekly or something like you always agree that at this time computers are online and we are at lunch or something, and you get the build like that for every device without having extra computers actually.
I noticed that the Unity builds are all happening from scratch and they're taking like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, they're happening from scratch now because this was just like quick and dirty setup. But
Is there a way to set up incremental builds?
I don't know if they're. I don't actually know. You can probably do some parts, but there might be some limitations because you're building it from the command line. But I think it could be optimized so that it doesn't have to do all the things from scratch.
Well, if your assets don't change, it, for instance, not recompress your textures just because you change the script.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in practice, it's not an issue.
Yeah. Or for example, now he's not changing anything. He's still taking 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, the one thing that slows this down is the iOS part. Now it's like
Yeah,
creating the actual iOS build, and then
You could
for
actually
instance the generating the debugging symbols for some reason it takes like 2 minutes or something like that. So that takes most of the time now.
But that would also work if you had like 2 different projects. If you want to have build on separate thing, and then just runs different like unit testing and that kind of integration testing on other places. So you would actually do the building on one project, which gets launched when you change code or something, and then you would see the other things in other places, and you could test them up, without building it again. Like if you have problem with internet in this case.
Yeah.
Because you can launch projects from a project in Jenkins. So you can basically do a lot of things with Jenkins. You just have to either find a plugin for it or code it yourself.
Yeah, but you can easily find plugins for Jenkins for almost anything. Almost all the version controlling systems are supported and all that. All these sort of things, and also Jenkins is quite easily customizable, it allows you to run any kind of script in the build process. So you can of course always do your own shell script wrappers on top of the existing tools that you can find. Yeah.
Anything else about anything?
Is Hockey a premium service?
HockeyApp is a premium service. I think it's free for 1 month or something, but after that it's not. There used to be Test Flight, which was free, but now I think it's only for iOS. If you are developing only for iOS, then it might be an alternative. I don't know if there are others.
I think it's always been only for iOS, but didn't Apple buy it?
Yeah, Apple bought it, and yeah, and it's now changing to be something different than it used to be. It will be like this Apple's own beta testing platform or something like that.
But you could actually use push notifications to push for Windows Phone and Windows, and just have a download link in that, and the user could download it with that, for example.
Yeah.
If you want to like think about continuous integration without tools at cost or something like that.
Yeah, and then of course one alternative, like easy solution, would be to just copy the build to a file share that is in your internal network that everybody can access, and they can get the build from there or something like that. It's like
Actually,
like
Test
normal.
Flight had support for Android.
Yeah,
at some
Yeah,
point.
he had for some time,
Yeah.
but then
And now the new Test Flight beta system is pretty much the same flow that Apple has for the App Store. Only the review time is shorter.
yeah. They immediately dropped the support when the Apple bought the service. Yeah.
And soon your phone will start ringing.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any like notifications enabled or anything like
There we
that.
go.
But now the build is available here. You should probably see it. Yeah, here is the 1.2, and I can download it here, or then I just can go to the same page with my phone, or use the HockeyApp application to get it, or anything like that. And HockeyApp also has some nice features that, for example, include the feedback. You can like have your testers and the people who are playing your game, they can just like directly write some feedback through this service, and then you can install HockeyApp SDK to your game, and it allows the developers or the testers to give feedback directly from the game. Inside the game you can add a menu that they can like use to give feedback, and it gives you automated crash logs. So if you have the SDK enabled, every time the game crashes on somebody's device, it will automatically send the crash report to HockeyApp, and the developers can start digging into that. And also, of course, there are things like notifications and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and then there is also an auto update feature. If you have the game already installed and then there is a new build in the HockeyApp, you can, when you start the game, it asks you to update the game, so the game stays up to date automatically on everybody who has it. And yeah, and now I can download the game here, and then I will have it here on my device. Basically, it's simple as that.
If you want some more complex examples of DevOps, we could think about performance testing for multiplayer. You have your multiplayer and you have a Docker or background or something, and you just keep pushing up nodes or testing clients that you have built, and those keep connecting to that, and you can test actually like thousands of users with very low amount of servers, for example with AWS, doing images and just pushing them up and destroying them after they have gone. And you can see if your server can handle a huge load. Of course, if you use Audacity, it will cost you something, but you can see if your server can actually hold for 5,000 users, for example, at the simultaneously. And you could actually use Jenkins to launch that test.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can use Jenkins for other tasks than building as well. You can basically use it to schedule some repetitive tasks that you have, or have some other tasks for the code. I've seen somebody, for example, have been doing so that they've been running some sort of like a memory analytics tool like Valgrind or something like that for the games, and you can of course run unit tests and things like that. It kind of gives you a good flexibility to automate things. Yeah, any more questions?